DFS strategy show. Feels good to be saying those words after a couple months off the LOL grind. I'm Alex Baker, joined today by Jeremy Schritt, Pick'em Genius, and Jay Kari, aka Jay Kari. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fine. Watching a little bit of golf. Fell asleep watching Australian football. Not too bad.
Wow, so you're playing a little bit of everything. Yeah, I'm doing well. Been trying out all these other sports, and now back to the usual League of Legends grind. So I'm excited to hopefully compete in some of these big tournaments we got tomorrow.
Man, it's wild. Like, I know the first slate of the year is usually pretty big in a lot of different sports, but I mean, the first slate of the year they have the championship. That's a new one. What do you? Are you guys playing in that, or is it a little bit high stakes?
Which one?
The LOL Online Championship tomorrow.
The 555.
Yeah.
I haven't decided. I'm a little rusty. But maybe after the show, I might jump in when you guys give me all the nut plays.
That's the plan. Yeah. If they have some other good tournaments too, like 150K prize pool. I was kind of thinking that the LCS would be the big one because we've been seeing those prize pools eclipse 100K to first in the past. So, Jeremy, what's your take on how this is going to shake out? Like, what the popular leagues are going to be?
Yeah, I was really surprised that DraftKings decided to. 1 second, I have a plane flying by.
Oh man, the suspense is killing us.
Yeah, no kidding. We've got quite a few League of Legends slates that I'm seeing actually over the next 24 hours or so. So it's pretty exciting.
Nice.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was really surprised that DraftKings didn't have the online championship for the first LCS slate, since we're all North American, and yeah, that was really surprising to me.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see if these tournaments fill up. I mean, the appetite for LOL is voracious, but the LEC hasn't been like the biggest prize pools in the past because of the start time being earlier in the morning. So it could be a good chance to get some overlays. I'm definitely thinking it'll be a good slate to fire on. And then one new addition to the summer split in the LCS is we have Friday night League of Legends. They have 2 games on Friday, 4 on Saturday, Sunday, instead of 5 on Saturday, Sunday. Now, 2-game best of 1 series, League of Legends DFS. That sounds a little bit wild. So, Jeremy, what do you think we're going to see there?
I think you're going to see a lot of first place splits with 1,000 people.
Favorite, yeah.
Yeah.
Win first and lose money.
That's the problem with the MMEing these days, and of course the Chinese slates 2 games for now. The Korean League should be getting going within the next week though, so that'll be when the action really heats up because that's every day, 4+ games, so that'll be pretty exciting. So let's talk about some League of Legends strategy. And of course, League of Legends stacking is huge because it's all about how many kills, assists each player gets. That's the main source of scoring. Now, for every kill in League of Legends, there's about 2 assists. There can be up to 4, like for each kill. So that's a lot of scoring that's happening together. And there's one game on the slate tomorrow where if you look at the kill props, they're on Pinnacle, they're just insane. Like most of the games are between 22 and 24 kills on average. This game between Mad Lions and G2 is at 30. So I have a feeling a lot of people are thinking this game will be the highest scoring one of the slate. Jeremy, I mean, we saw these teams duke it out in the playoffs. What are you expecting there?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people's days are going to be decided really early. This is the very first game of the slate. So it's an interesting spot to where if you, like that game goes bottoms up and you don't have as much G2, you could be looking really good. Yeah.
Definitely. That's kind of like the pivot point of the night to start off with. So Jake, have you looked at this game? And I mean, there's like a few different ways you can go. You can stack G2, which is a big favorite, you can go for the upset, or maybe you make a lineup hoping this game is lower scoring than expected. So what's your intuition here?
Yeah, so I'm getting to using your projections, getting to a lot of both of these teams. So I agree with what Jeremy said. I think for me, especially, and probably a lot of people that do use the projections, this first game is definitely going to play a big role, and obviously no late swaps, so you're kind of stuck. If you break this first game, you're going to be in trouble, and it looks like that's going to be the case for me. If I'm running 20 or 50 or 150, I haven't really decided what I'm doing. It's going to be a healthy dose of both of these teams: 4-mans, 3-mans, 2-mans, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I'll give my take in a second, but Jeremy, what's your intuition here? I mean, obviously, you can build multiple lineups and kind of cover some different bases, but what's your favorite strategy here?
I like just playing G2. I think that the role swap with Caps and Perks makes them better. All of the spring split, Caps is playing AD carry. He had some interesting games at the position. He did score well sometimes, but Perks is just better. So it's like an upgrade without having to change your roster. So I think G2 is pretty comfortable, and Mad Lion still has top lane issues. They didn't really address anything. So I just really like G2.
Yeah, of course they are going to be the chalky team of the day. So my top stacks tool, I published everything extra early for this slate, and I'm pulling that up now. But I think that G2 of the 10 teams has about a 37% chance of being the top stack. That's 3.7 times higher than any other than your average team. There's only one other team above average chance, and that's their opponent, the Mad Lions. And of course, this is based on the fact that the number of kills in a League of Legends match are somewhat predictable. So, man, this is gonna be tough. The other angle is that G2 is very expensive. Mad Lions is super, super cheap. They're one of the cheapest teams on the slate. So you get the leverage and some really good value players. And it's all going to come down to the outcome. And what I found, this is going to depend a lot for me on the size of the tournament I'm entering. Because in the main GPP, there's 11.7K participants. And the odds of having a duplicated lineup are a lot higher in that tournament than in some of the smaller ones. So I think that going to some interesting stack types helps a lot. And if you have 4 G2 players, it's going to salary cap you, and you're going to have the same lineup as a lot of other people. So Jake, I mean, there's some good options here: 4-3, 4-2, or maybe even mixing it up even more. But what's your favorite stack and how you approach building your lineup?
Yeah, I would love to just jam in 4-3 all over the place, but and I think you had some early success, actually a ton of success. I had a little bit of success when we first started playing League of Legends DFS in mid-March, right when all the sports stoppages started. So it was basically just 4-3s for everything for the first 10 or 15 slates, and it got sharper and sharper and sharper. And I'm still I was going through lineup study. FC's lineup study, and I was noticing you can take down these tournaments, these large field tournaments with 4-3s, and solo or split with 1 to 5 people, which is pretty comfortable. And so I'm gonna try to stick to 4-3 as much as possible, but when I am stacking a chalky team, who do we say, G2, yeah, so G2, they're going to be one of the more popular teams. That would be a team I would be looking to play more 4-2-1, do a team one-off, or something weird with the captain spot, and maybe just get away from the chalk 4-3 with the captain on the 4 side lineup construction.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you pick 4 G2 and your captain is on G2, and then you stack another team too, it's going to be hard to find many combinations. So you're going to have a lot of the same lineups as other people. Now, Jeremy, I'll throw the question to you: 4-3, 4-2. How do you approach that in your lineups?
Yeah, I have a lot of the same opinion. Is where I usually start as a base 4-3. I crunch a lot of just 4-3s, and then I look for places within those crunches where I can just change one thing, and then I like recrunch 4-2-1s to see if anything else comes up. Because like the thing with 4-2-1s is you only need one thing to go your way to be massively different. So like the team spot, say G2, the team gets like 24 points. Say random Team X Fnatic, let's just say they get 26 points. If you have Fnatic instead of G2 and like the same other 6 guys, you just win, and you probably have way less dupes, so you win more. And so like situations like that where I can easily just like pivot to something within a 4-3 stack to a 4-2-1, that's something I like doing a lot.
Nice, man. I think that making that pivot really helps spread out it helps differentiate your lineup from other people. So I think that's a good strategy. I'll give kind of my take here. Make sure to click the thumbs up button so that the prognosticative power of this take is improved. But I actually think this is one advantage hand building lineups in League of Legends really helps, because one of the main issues in League of Legends DFS, I did a video on this, is that you can build lineups that are dominated pretty easily if you build a 4-2 or a 3-3, because the swap you make, it has to be such that it's impossible to like improve on the lineup with just like a 1-for-1 swap. The team spot is like a good way to differentiate, because the amount of points team score is relatively independent from from the rest of the stack, and that's because those kills don't really amass any points for the team. But if you're taking a 4-3 with 4 G2 players, and you're trying to get different because you swap one out for like a different team, if you're leaving that salary open to that other lineup that's much better because of the correlation, your lineup's pretty much dead. So what I'm saying is like the times where you want to make a 4-2 are like when you have to do that to fit in like the right combo of players, and like improving on the correlation by making a swap is impossible. So I'm really trying to find that unique lineup construction where you can't like take the lineup and improve it in any way.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's hard to do it in an optimizer. So that's where like really putting thought into your lineups, especially if you're doing a few higher stakes lineups, helps a lot. Jake, what were you gonna say?
So when you're running like a 4-2, you'd be more likely to use 49.9 or 50,000 of your salary cap. Is that correct? Instead of like with some of these 4-3s, you might be like, I'm looking at some of my like top ranked lineups, and I've got like 49,200, 49,400, and they're all like 4-3s, whereas the 4-2s are really close to that 50K in salary cap.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great way to kind of do it. Is if you're doing a 4-2, you want to like fill out your whole salary cap, because the whole advantage is like you're finding like a unique way to allocate the salary. Now 4-3, you like have all the correlation baked into your lineup, and you don't have to worry about being dominated, because there's no like pivots you can make that immediately improve the lineup. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and you mentioned like hand building. It's something that I do like occasionally. It's like I mess around with it. Like sometimes you can get a 4-2-1 stack with like a mid lane captain or a jungle captain, and that's something that I like usually look for, because sometimes you can get like a good team, especially with pricing on this first LEC slate. Aside from G2 just being like the most expensive everything except for the team, a lot of the teams have like very fluctuating prices within each role. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking for places where I might like a stack that's a 4-3, but maybe if I build a 4-2-1, I can get like a mid lane captain instead of a jungle captain.
Yeah, that's huge, because like obviously if you have a mid laner or ADC as your captain, those guys are a lot more likely to lead the team in scoring, and that becomes hard to fit in your stack. So going to a point at one of your positions is a pretty good strategy. So Jake, I liked your advice there, where if you're building a 4-2, make sure to like spend that salary, and if you're building a 4-3, like you can leave a little bit more on the table to differentiate your lineup. Now, let's talk about some of the other stacks besides the G2 and Mad Lions on the slate. maybe if you're fading that game and as a whole, like what game do you think might have some upside, Jeremy, to be the highest scoring today?
Oh, Fnatic. Like I look at your ownership and I'm just like, oh my God, Fnatic is like not owned. Or I want more Fnatic than what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Well, I know they were the second best team in the spring split. If you take that G2 kind of beat them in the playoffs, so they're the best. Now Fnatic not as quickly paced a team, but they are excellent. They're significant price decrease from G2. And what do you make of the matchup with Misfits?
So Misfits got Kabe, who's an upgrade. So that's good. And they also signed a new sub, or I think it's going to be a sub support. I'm not sure yet. I'm sure we'll get lineups before lock. But I just think that Misfits kind of overperformed last split, and Fnatic placed second, and they are the second best team. So I expect that Fnatic pretty comfortably like beats Misfits. And if less people are on Fnatic can score. So I like that.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a great team, and they got a good shot at winning minus 230. So you can bank on that. Jake, which games are you looking at for your stacks here?
Yeah, Fanatics is looking at the top stack tool. Fanatics was one that graded out pretty favorably, not too highly owned, and then not over owned. So two things that I like to look for as like a mass multi-entry player, primarily. And so I like the call there. I also noticed on the other side though, the Misfits are actually grading out okay. They're super low owned, so I don't know if I'm actually going to get to them. They're under, we're expecting under 4% ownership on DraftKings, but they've got a higher than 4% chance of being the top stack. The only problem is I don't think I would get to a 4 just because they're so cheap. I think I'd have trouble spending a lot of that extra salary cap if I was to go to them.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because if you're using Optimizer like Fantasy Cruncher, I mean, that's the one I use to build a lot of lineups, and then I kind of sift through them. Now, you're going to have to up the randomness on a team like Misfits because you're not going to get that 4 stack with the captain because their projection isn't very high. And if you're banking on an upset, you might as well like pick 4 of them because your lineup's not going to cash if they don't win. So that's kind of how I approach it. Now, one of the stacks I'm really looking at here is Rogue. XL is supposed to be really popular, and that's because I think you can fit them in G2 in the same lineup pretty easily. Now, if you just pivot and you go to a more expensive team in Rogue, they are the underdog, even though they're priced higher. This is like a pay up to be contrarian move here. So I'm kind of getting a lot of leverage on the people who maybe are optimizing their lineup a little bit too much.
Yes. No, I like that call a lot. Because not only you're going against the over-owned XL and you're getting leverage, hoping to knock out like a quarter of the field almost, and you get a low and stack that's not even like, it's realistic that Rogue actually does come through here. It's not like they're a 1% chance. Like they've got a decent chance. It's not going to work out every time, but I think if you make that play over the long term, I like that call, Alex.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So one thing that's surprising to me here is usually the pricing is based heavily on the odds to win. So why is Excel so cheap here? Like what happened, Jeremy? What are we missing here?
Well, XL made a few changes. I actually think they're good changes. And before seeing these numbers, I was like also pretty interested in Excel, but I don't see a reason to be this excited for Excel. Their top laner dominated the Polish league, the Polish Prime League. He was on the Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition, so like shout outs to that. He averaged like 5 kills a game in that league and had like a 31% kill share percentage, which was that's a lot for a top laner. So I was originally gonna be like really excited in him, but like they're still pretty big dogs. They're not gonna win this game too often. But the thing that I worry about with Rogue is that they averaged like 10 kills last split a game, and they didn't really change anything. So I would want more than I see the ownership says, but I wouldn't go crazy on Rogue. And you don't need to go crazy on Rogue.
I might have made a mistake here because I'm looking at the odds and they're not what I typed into my spreadsheet. So we'll update that. Fortunately, we have a lot of time before the slate starts here. So I'm sure they'll change the way the ownership looks. One issue with the ownership this week, it was way harder to calculate. And let me pose this question to you guys here, is that League of Legends LEC is played best of 1 during the whole regular season. Then the playoffs are all best of 5. And if you go into the game logs of these guys in G2, it's like hundreds of points a game. And then you go into the game logs of a team that didn't make the playoffs, and it's like 10 points a game. Like, how heavily do you think that's going to skew like the public opinion on these players? Jake, how do you feel about that? Like, how much do you think people rely on the information DraftKings provides to make their choices?
Oh, just game log watching.
Yeah.
It's always hard for me to gauge that because it's something that people say in like every sport. It's not just League of Legends. It's NHL, NBA, NFL. And I think like there's obviously some casuals that play League of Legends, so there might be some of that. But I think now like you're seeing a lot of pros and 150 maxers like fill up these big tournaments. So in the big tournaments, I don't think it matters that much. And then as you go up in stakes, you're going to get some sharper players. So they're not going to care about that as much. They're going to be more focused on lineup construction and correlation and stuff like that. So it might matter a little bit in like, the mini max or something like that. I could see, people, a bunch of casuals putting in $1 lineups and stuff like that. But for me, it's not even something I ever even think about. So what do you guys think?
Jeremy, what do you think? I mean, like, how much do people rely on those average fantasy points per game to make their lineups?
Yeah, I agree in general, Jake, that I don't really, I have like basically the same thought, but like the example or for this slate, G2 is already going to be popular. And if you game log watch G2, you're going to be like, oh, wow, I really like G2. Like, G2 is really good. So if people are doing that, they're doing it for a really good team, which is like, whatever, dude. Like, good job. You can be right just by game log watching this time.
It's not hard to figure out the best team to pick in this instance. So, like, if you're picking G2 and you're like, I want to win this tournament by picking G2, people are going to be having them enough. You might be in for a surprise when you see that every player is like 40% owned or something like that. So it's going to be tricky because they are such a big favorite to have the highest score of the day. So let's talk about the captain because, of course, you want to start off your lineup with someone solid. So, Jake, how do you usually approach like figuring out what positions to put a captain, and how do you make your lineups?
Yeah, so I read. I think Jeremy, you did the primer, and we've talked about it a couple times. Like the ADC and the mid are the guys that are going to score the most points. So in general, that's where you want the most of your captain exposure, and that's what I've tried to do. But it depends what you're trying to do. Are you trying to solo take down the $15 on DK? I mean, then you might there might be some other guys at different positions that you would want to check out. And so I'm getting a little bit of that, but mainly I'm just looking for a high scoring ADC or mid laner. So I'm sure Jeremy and you, Alex, could probably point out some other guys that you would use specifically on this slate, and I would be all ears to listen to that.
Jeremy, how are you approaching captain today or tomorrow?
Yeah, a lot of mid, a lot of AD carry, but this is a weird slate that I usually, one of the first things I usually do in crunching is I X out most or all of the top laners at the captain position because a lot of them don't score enough. This one is a little bit different. Like Wonder can score, Whippo can score, Alfari can score. So I'm more open to having top lane captains, especially because I think like having Wonder captain on G2, like, all right, I'm playing a G2 stack. I have Wonder captain. Everyone else has like Jankos or Perks or Caps. It's like we've seen Mickey X score the most points for G2 in a game. So like you can just roll the 5-sided die and anyone on G2 can just score the most points. So if you play someone like Wonder who can score like 40, 50 points in a game, and he's like not owned, you just have an advantage over so many other G2 lineups.
Yeah, and top is interesting because support is the obvious like price pivot because they're so much cheaper on average than any other position. Top is pretty much the worst position from the salary cap standpoint to put at captain because they don't have the upside and they don't have that price drop that support has. Of course, I'm excluding the team here. If you're thinking about putting a team in your captain spot, do not do it at all costs. You might as well unregister. So Jake, how do you feel about maybe putting a top or support in a captain? Like, is that something you try to avoid, or is it how you fit in your stacks?
So what I usually do when I go on Fantasy Cruncher is for a big slate like this, like I might start out Xing out some of the guys, or every other position besides ADC and mid, and then start slowly adding back guys that I think have a good chance of being the top scorer on their team. So especially on chalky teams like G2, you get a chalky, expensive team, like that would be somewhere like where Jeremy said, you roll the 5-sided die. If it doesn't land on one of the top 2 guys, and all of a sudden a jungler or something on the chalky team ends up being the top scorer, like you're already differentiating yourself while just playing the chalk in a little bit of a different way. So that would be the scenario in which I would look to do that, but not necessarily on like if we're talking about one of these underdog like longer shot plays, I would mostly stick to the ADC and mid.
Nice, man. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Where if you're not spending all your salary cap, you want to go for the ADC or mid. If you want to make some contrarian pivots at captain, like you're gonna have to maybe pick a guy that's not going to be highly owned. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, if like one strategy that's not bad is you pick 2 underdog teams and you make the captain ADC. You're not going to spend like most of the salary, but that has a lot of upside. That's because League of Legends isn't a sport where like scores are normally distributed. It's not like a player is projected for 15 and they're gonna score like 13 and 17 because like it's so much depending on whether they get the win or not. And that's why like having a lineup that doesn't have like a high projection like can still be good because if both teams like get the win, they will have a higher outcome. So that's something that I try to fit in a little bit is like you have the ADC of a bad team and then you pair them with another kind of rougher team and that gives you a really unique lineup. Jeremy, how do you feel about maybe picking 2 big underdogs on the slate?
Yeah, like since G2 will eat so much ownership, you could possibly get like 1, 2, 3 dupes by doing that. So like if you win 50K, you're not winning like $300. You might win like an actual amount of money. So yeah, that's something that I always try to be cognizant of, especially on larger slates. Like on 2-game slates, it's like more difficult for me to love big underdogs, but on bigger slates where it'll just because like on smaller slates, you're still going to get like a lot of dupes if you play 2 underdogs. You're not going to get like as many as if you play the favorites, but you're still going to be splitting with like a good number of people. So yeah, on like bigger slates, I try to be cognizant and add like 2 dogs. Like the 2 dogs that I like, I usually focus on like 2 teams that I think can win, aren't likely to win, and just play the AD carry captain and leave a bunch of salary on the table.
Definitely, yeah. Especially if you're picking misfits, I think it's a good option.
And it's a sport that like there's so much correlation between everyone but the team spot. There's still some correlation between the team spot, but like I think like this is a sport where if you're playing, and you guys, I want to hear your opinions on this as well. Like if you're playing 20 lineups in the $15 tomorrow and you just think G2 is like way too good of a play, you could just set a salary cap restraint on Fantasy Crunch or something and just kind of mix and match, like use G2 as your 4 in all your lineups. And if you wanted to be this risky and just kind of mix in everyone that seems like a decent play or has a decent shot to win in the top stacks tool. That's something that I'm considering for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that that's like super smart. That's something that I do in like 20 maxes in general for like LPL and then LPL and LCK slates is like if I really like a team, I will just like play them. Uh, it really depends on how like risk tolerant you are and risk averse you are. But something like that, if you do want to get like over the field on G2, that is like a really good way of doing it.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, the one comment I'll have is we'll talk a little bit more about the 2-game slates later. Like that strategy is a little bit different because it's like sometimes the like really popular lineups in a 2-game slate are just like so much better than every other lineup that it's like you might get $800 for a 50K to first, but it's not. It's worth it because of how often they win. Um, let's talk a little bit about so the game stack. I mean, like we saw in the LCS last season, there was a Cloud9 Evil Geniuses game, I believe, that someone won 100K off of by stacking up the game. It was just insane. I think right before the game, Cloud9 was like yellow or try hard, so you knew something was up. And the one of the drawbacks is that you can only get 4-2 because you have to have players from 2 different games as a requirement. But it's generally a strategy I don't really try to get anyway. But Jeremy, do you think that this G2 Misfits game has that potential, or is it just going to be way too popular to do that?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's a good idea. I don't recommend it. When the C9 and Team Liquid game, we did a show before that, and I was like, listen, if there's one day you're gonna game stack and win 100K, it's gonna be today. And then it happened. I was like, I didn't have any. I was like, oh my god, I should have listened to myself.
Yeah.
I feel really bad right now. But yeah, I would just. I don't think I would do that too often, if at all. But like you see the same guys do it in tournaments, and they're always up at the top for the first game. So like, I don't know. If you want to get a screenshot, then like go nuts.
Yeah, start your lineups on like service. There you go. That early screenshot.
Jake, how do you feel about the game stacks?
Yeah, so I don't like, especially on a 5-gamer. It's not even something I'm gonna consider. It's gonna happen. Like when we did that, I think I was on that show with the 100K to first too, and I didn't even think about running a game stack on a 5-game slate just because there's so much negative correlation. You need, for the most part, you need both teams, both your stacks, their teams to win. So like I won't be doing that for tomorrow, but I mean it does happen like it happened then. So I guess the shorter the slate, like on a maybe like a 3-game slate and especially a 2-game slate where you just don't have that many options, like yeah, it becomes more and more viable as the slate gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not a great idea because like too many people do it first of all, so it's not like you're being like really smart or really sneaky. It's like a lot of people who optimize their lineups just don't set it up right. So on Fantasy Cruncher, you want to make sure to there's an option limit opposing players and to anyone on your team, and you can set that to 0 for each game, and that will guarantee that you won't have any players from the opposing team because there's such a negative correlation between like one team and their opponent. So that is definitely not a strategy I want to be using tomorrow to game stack. Jeremy, like what are some other like novice mistakes that people watching this who haven't played League of Legends before might make when building their lineups tomorrow?
So you've kind of mentioned this, but you see like 1 or 2% of people like still play teams in the captain spot. Yeah, just don't do that. And you see guys play supports on like bad teams. It's like you can be different other ways. Like support, like if you want to play Mickey X the captain tomorrow, like I'm probably not going to do it, but I don't hate it as much as other teams because you still need the other support to also do well. Like if Mickey X gets 40, the other guy could get like 15. So like whatever. Mostly it's just like not finding, but understanding that your captain really like dictates your lineup most of the times. Like you need the captain right, because if you play like a jungle captain, you need the other jungler to do well. And that's why it's so important that like mid lane and AD carries at the captain spots are so popular. So usually like my biggest thing is nailing the captain, really is like, yeah, that's it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's something that goes overlooked a little bit, is that when you have an AD carry as your captain, obviously you get two of those. You have a support at your captain, you get two supports. So it's like you're doubling down on a position that's not that good. So in a lot of instances, I recommend going for the like position that scores better at captain, and then just picking a worse team to stack it up with. So it might make your projection look a little bit worse, but your upside's a lot higher. So let's talk a little bit about the different slates that are happening here, because the LEC is best of one, uh, LPL best of three, and then some people might have been playing the playoffs, which can be up to best of five. So, like, if people are probably entering these contests and be like, why isn't G2 scoring 100 points anymore? Well, before we get into this, I got to give a promo here. So, if you don't have a membership to awesome.com, so what you get is you get the projections that'll help you optimize your lineup to make a really strong lineup, especially if you don't know the teams that well. You get ownership predictions. That's huge because that helps you decide who the leverage plays are on the day. And then, of course, the top stacks tool is really how you can put it all together, because it tells you the ownership of a team and their chances of being the highest scoring team. And the whole premise is that you need to have four of the highest scoring team, or maybe three, plus four of another team to win the tournament. So that's really where you want to start off your process here. But so how does the slates best of three, best of five, best of one approach your approach, Jeremy?
In best of ones, like honestly, it doesn't change all that much. Like best of ones are just like more volatile for me in general, because like it's just a best of one. Like anyone can beat anyone, generally speaking. Not like V5. They lost a bunch of best of threes in the LPL last split, so it didn't matter if that was a best of one or best of three because they won one total game. But generally speaking, most teams can remain competitive with most teams. So a best of one provides more like different outcomes. So like playing two underdogs is more likely to be beneficial in a best of one for me than a best of three, because better teams tend to win still. So like LNG beat LPL or like FPX, and FPX was like a minus 4,000 favorite. That doesn't happen too often. And if it was a best of one, FPX would have won. So like it's just, yeah, best of one for me is just like more volatile. I'm more willing to try like different stacks, trying to find like the right combination, because all I need is one good game and not two or three good games.
Nice.
I would just be more risky. Like, I'd be willing to play like anything can happen in one game. It's not like the NBA Finals where it's 7-game series. Usually the better team wins. Like Jeremy said, it's one game. You have one bad start. All of a sudden, like you can be in big trouble, and you could see the minus 600 favorite that we've got just go down super easily. So I would just be willing to take more risks where the ownership is similar. Like you're going to see guys with 20% less ownership that are projected for like a few less points than another guy. And certainly on a lineup basis as well, that gap's going to be even wider. So I would just be looking to play more underdogs. You can play the chalk, obviously. The chalk's still more often than not going to smash in a 1-game sample, but if the ownership starts to get out of hand for some of these higher owned teams, then there's no reason why you shouldn't look to a lower probability outcome.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think people get a little bit too comfortable with that minus 200 favorite. Like we have G2 tomorrow. They're minus 225. So that means 30% of the time they're going to lose. And one thing with the ownership is that because you can only have 4 players from a team, that 30% stacking means that a lot more than 30% of lineups will have at least a player from G2. So that's like a huge percent of the field that you're taking out when that upset happens. And that's going to be that's going to be a decent amount of time, 30% of the time. So a sport that's kind of comparable is MMA. Like we had Felicia Spencer versus Amanda Nunes, and it's like Spencer was a huge underdog, but had almost as much as of her as Nunes because it's just like you get so much leverage over the field, and when they do win, even though it's more unlikely, like that upside is just as good as the team they're facing. So the Mad Lions, when they win, they're gonna see the benefits of being in that high-paced game tomorrow.
Yep.
Um,
I'm making a leverage like column in my sheet where I'm just tracking each lineup how much, like if that team wins, how much of the field I'm actually knocking out. So I think you can do that without like going in Excel. You can do that on Fantasy Cruncher by just eyeballing it. But like you want to make sure that you are getting some sort of leverage when your teams do win.
Definitely, yeah. Like one of the important factors that gets overlooked a lot of times is like what is the ownership of the opposing team? Because like you're leveraging that negative correlation between the winning and losing team. So that's pretty big. Now we're getting some questions about the academy slate. I posted projections for that, but I don't have much to say. Jeremy, like what should people expect when they're playing some of these slates that aren't like the major league slates?
You can get more volatility sometimes. I had a friend who was like played EG in the like last split academy before sports died, and he was like, "Listen, I like EG." I'm like, "You're crazy." They average like 3 kills a game, and they come out and they win him a bunch of money. I'm like, good job, friend. I don't know how you did it, but like I didn't do that. But really like, and the thing with academy teams is that sometimes they have like LCS players on them, like former LCS players. Like Dardoch might start for Dignitas Academy today, and like Lost and Dokla on TSM Academy, they've played in the LCS before. Like sometimes the Academy teams are just glorified LCS B teams, and sometimes they're actually new talent. So, and a lot of the times the new talent are going to be less popular because they're not as known. There's less data, there's less information. So it's really how risk averse are you? Do you want to play the new guys or do you want to play like the possibly washed LCS veterans? And that's mostly it. Like, what do you want to do? Like build a narrative and build around that really. And also look at all of their stats. The stats are online. You can find them on Gamepedia, gol.gg. They're like the stats for these players that have played are out there.
Nice. Yeah, gol.gg is a pretty good source. They have like even the most obscure leagues on there, so that's something you can really leverage in these tournaments. And it's all about the research because people are going to be playing people that aren't even starting. I think that you can get a big edge, but the prize pools aren't that big. So it's kind of a little bit less reward for your time. So it's not. I guess it depends why you play the game. Now, let's talk about these 2-game LPL slates because those are pretty much every night. I haven't seen any real big wins from anyone yet because it seems to be split at least 5 times every single night. Jake, have you been playing the LPL 2-gamers?
I have, but I can't justify putting in 150 lineups. And I think you've done this before. If you were gonna do something like that, whether it's in the mini max or the $15 or whatever it is, $10, $12, then I would consider running trains with some of the higher projected lineups, because then you're just getting double or triple or quadruple the cut if you do think the first place prize. Like the correlation is massive. You're gonna have half the teams losing on those 2-game slates, and it's like it's just gonna create so many ties if things even go close to the way that Bayes expects them to go. So I would consider running some trains with some of your lineups if you're mass multi-entering. What I've been doing and not having a lot of success with is just basically going all in on a team and taking a unique captain with like 20 lineups. And it's not going to work out very often, but if it does, and I can split with a couple people or 3 people, then that's what I'm looking to do over the long term.
Yeah, man, it's a struggle, but I know people are out there playing these, and it's crazy because it's like you can get unique and then you have such a low chance of winning, or you can eat the chalk and then you don't win very much. So it's very like interesting as an experience. The one thing I'll mention with the best of 3 and best of 5 when they happen is that if the game ends before all the games are played, then the losing team is just eliminated completely from any DFS relevance. If you're doing 2 players from opposing teams, you really need that to go 2-1 for that to have any chance of working out. And 2-1 is less likely than 2-0, 100% of games based on just math. So that becomes a parlay. That's why you see so many 4-3s take it down. Like the only reason you go 4-2 is just because like you don't have enough salary to make it work. Jeremy, have you been playing these two gamer LPL slates?
Oh yeah, you know it. I like LPL. I like watching LPL. I'm kind of in the same boat as Jake, where I have been doing like different things, like mostly just 20 maxing, and like trying to find ways to be different enough. Like I'll still enter a few chalk lineups, but like I played Fen at captain last night, and there was like not as many people with that, and he went off, and that was like a good idea, but Teacher Ma didn't go off so much, but like yeah. I've been playing. I've been like treading water. That's all I need to do right now. Waiting for LCK so we can get some like 4 or 5 game slates. And that's mostly it.
Nice, man. Yeah, that'll be cool when LCK comes. It's like 5 days from now, so not that long a wait, I think. And man, we have a new team in the LCK because they do that relegation thing, so that'll be kind of fun. But yeah, those 4 game slates will be a lot better than these 2 game LPL slates we've been seeing.
Alex, are you still running trains in those 2 game slates, or have you kind of gotten away from that?
It really varies because like here's the thing is a couple of nights ago when FPX and LNG were playing and FPX was like a 1500 favorite, and Top Esports was like -500. It's like I couldn't even make 150 lineups that I thought were good. So that's why I like train so much. But it's like I kind of want to get first over the optimizing my winnings, I guess, because like you can identify a lineup and be like, this lineup is better entered twice than like the worst lineup in your set. So having some sort of system to kind of rate the lineups, that's how I do it. Now people always wonder about like the duplicating of lineups and how you estimate that. And like the easiest way you can do that I found is you just go in Fantasy Cruncher and you open multiple tabs and you just crunch a bunch of times and you can kind of figure out what are the lineups that pop up like a ton. And those are always going to be like super high on. So it's interesting because that experience of like accounting for like the duplicated lineups in LOL has helped me a lot in some other fantasy sports like MMA and NASCAR where there are limited player pools as well. So Jeremy, how do you approach like whether you want to pick up popular lineup that's going to be duped a lot of times or get unique and run a riskier lineup?
It depends on what contest I'm entering, really. Like if I'm entering like the big tournament, then I want to be as unique as possible. And if I'm entering like a 20 max, I'll have a few chalkier lineups that I know will be duped a lot, and like maybe I can possibly break even if I win with it. But generally speaking, yeah, it just depends on what contest I'm entering. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. All right. So one question I have, Jeremy, for you is that like so they change the patch every season basically. Now this most recent patch, I've been playing a little bit, so I've been trying to follow it all. Is like the ADC position is highly under debate right now. And was it this previous patch that adjusted it, or is that the next patch? I'm a little bit confused on that point.
I think it's this patch because I think the LPL and the LEC and the LCK and the LCS are all going to be playing on patch 10.11. So that means the AD carry position they're almost there. Like Ezreal is being played with like a weird build. And usually it's just the range things taking advantage of items that they shouldn't be allowed to take advantage of. And that's like the biggest change with this patch is that, yeah, they can finally take advantage of some really good items that they shouldn't be allowed to.
That's really interesting because I'm sure like a lot of the DFS players aren't really following it that closely. So is this a net positive for ADC because they were already like the best position? Does that make them even better?
Oh, I mean, if you're on the internet and the forums, the AD carriers are trash and they need to be buffed like 100 times. You know, as an AD carry main, I agree. Buff AD carries more. Let's go. But I mean, yeah, you're just gonna see safer AD carries, and that's just safer AD carries. It's the best way to put it.
That's interesting because like the biggest way AD carry doesn't get there is they're very vulnerable. So if they just die before the team fight and the team wins, like then that's how you get an AD carry that doesn't score well. But usually, I mean, they have the most like offensive capabilities, so they're usually uh, the highest kill count of the team. And I mean, if they're safer now, does that mean there's less risk of them kind of missing out on those team fight kills?
For some AD carries, yes, just like certain champions are inherently safer in this patch than previous patches. Mostly Ezreal, who can just build like pretty tanky, but also do like a good amount of damage still.
Yeah, I was watching. I think QQ picked Ezreal, and I woke up and I was watching him play AD carry. That was kind of interesting the other night. So the slate tomorrow, first 5-gamer in a while, should be a lot of fun. Jake, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to, I'm trying to take it down by myself or maybe with one or two other people. I am focused on using the top stacks tool. I mean, I really do use that for League of Legends and every other sport we offer it for. So I would suggest buying some sort of weekly pass or some, buy the platinum because it is a super, super valuable tool. We've got the top golfers and all that as well. But anyways, I'm going to be using that to try to figure out how much leverage I can get while also making highly projected lineups. It is I don't know much about actual gameplay of League of Legends, but I think you don't necessarily need to know how to play League of Legends or even watch it in order to be successful at DFS. You just need to take some of the things you learn playing other DFS sports and specifically the stacking ones and the ones that you can get leverage, like playing a pitcher or playing a stack against a popular pitcher. Like there's ideas like that translate really well to playing League of Legends.
Absolutely. That's a great way to approach it, is like taking your knowledge from other DFS sports and kind of using that to accelerate your learning process in League of Legends. So I think that's a successful way to approach it. Jeremy, final thoughts for tomorrow's slate?
Personally, I hope G2 kind of crashes and burns, but I will still be playing enough of them to not inevitably get owned when they crush Mad Lions. I would like Origin and Fnatic quite a bit. So I think that's probably going to be my favorite spot that isn't G2 to go to.
Yeah, man, it's hard to build a lineup without some take on the G2 game, either G2 or Misfits, because it's like such a higher kill estimate than any other game. So that'll be kind of the pivotal moment, and how you play that will really affect your day here. Should be really exciting because we got the League of Legends Championship tomorrow, so that's an interesting way to start the season. But the main thing I'm looking at tomorrow, I honestly believe these contests aren't going to fill. So if you want to get a little bit better odds, having a contest that doesn't rake as much, that's going to be a huge way to kind of boost the chance of success heading into this season here. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Locks tomorrow at 12 Eastern. So make sure to be following it late and have some lineups that are ready to go in case the opportunity presents itself. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't clicked the like button, make sure to click that on the way out. That helps us a lot. Jeremy and Jake, thanks a lot for your thoughts here and analysis, and good luck to everyone who's watching tomorrow. It should be a great slate.